Good morning and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this morning, where you get your daily dose of Celtic news. It is game day. It is back to Celtic Park for league business. It is a top versus second bottom clash with Ross County today. Tell me what your score predictions are. Now we're going to talk about Liel Abada. We're going to talk about Chris Boyd having a complete meltdown again publicly against Neil Lennon. This is one going to be absolutely fantastic to read. Chris Sutton's had a dig at Celtic and said, look, Celtic transfers shouldn't be this complicated. We know positions that were needing filled and we should have had the business done by now. Well, Chris, we'll talk about that in just a second. But Bredan Rodgers, back to Bredan Rodgers and Liel Abada. Now, I have been saying on this channel for a few months, since October, since the nonsense all started, about Liel Abada, that Liel Abada will not leave this window. A lot of people on the channel were saying, yes, he will. He'll leave in the next window. He'll leave. And the papers, the Scottish mainstream media, and some Celtic podcasts have even been saying that Liel Abada was going to leave, and I've said no, he won't, because he just signed that new contract. You've got to remember, look at the actual timeline of events and things that have happened at Celtic. Bredan Rodgers in October went out for dinner with Liel Abada to make sure that he was okay, to make sure his mindset okay, and just make sure he was focused on football. Now, Bredan Rodgers has come out today and says, look, Liel Abada is an important part of our setup here, and he's not going to be going anywhere. He reiterated the fact that there's not been one single solid official bid for Liel Abada. You know, the press might say that there's people coming on loan for Liel Abada. Bredan Rodgers did reiterate the fact that no one has came in for Liel Abada, and if anyone did, Celtic would turn those bids down. Anyway, Liel Abada come from a high-profile Israeli player, and they always seem to emphasise that. It just seems the way that the Scottish media is going with this. There's nothing on Liel, said Rodgers. I know there's been stories generated for whatever reason around him, probably trying to second guess what's going on with Liel. Exactly, and I've been telling you that for absolute months. You have to listen to what Bredan Rodgers has said over the last couple of months to actually, listen to his interviews. Just listen to his interviews, and you can take from that. Stop second guessing what you think's going on in Liel Abada's head, Scottish media. Anyway, Bredan Rodgers said it's very simple. Liel was out injured for a long period of time. He'd gone back. And again, he's a player I'm excited to work with. I can improve him as a player. He's a player that I spoke to very early on, and he comes to me each week and we speak. And his focus is very much on being here at Celtic and developing. He's completely focused. Of course he is. Look, all the nonsense that's been going on about the stuff that's going on with Israel and Gaza, it's not nonsense, right? We have to think about the tens of thousands of people that have been displaced their homes and have died in Gaza over the last couple of months, and that's absolutely devastating. But when it comes to the Celtic player, it's all about the media trying to just create something that isn't there, which is, unfortunately, it's just the way the Scottish media is, really, isn't it? We're going to talk a bit more about Scottish media and Chris Boyd in just a second. Anyway, it's natural, Bredan Rodgers said, with the difficulties in his homeland. He said, you can't ignore that, but he's not someone we want to sell, said Bredan. He's a real integral part of what we're going to do here. I have always said this, when we have all the availability of all the players, he says you have to have the right type of players in. You see, him alone coming back is the difference that it makes to our team, said Bredan. So I won't be in a hurry to lose that. Bredan Rodgers is not letting him go anywhere this window or the summer, by the looks of it. I'm going to say that Liel Abada will still be here, and I hope Matt O'Reilly will still be here after the summer, but that's a whole different kettle of fish. Anyway, the transfer window, has it been unacceptable? Well, Chris Boyd, we'll talk about him in a second, but Chris Sutton said that continuing to neglect one position is unacceptable by Celtic. Nicholas Kuhn remains the only player to have came into Celtic this transfer window, and it's a position that we didn't really feel that needed filled by Celtic, but they've obviously brought him in, and I think that eventually he's a player that will probably do well for Celtic. But Greg Taylor getting injured, everyone's been saying for a couple of seasons now we need a left back. Now we brought in Bernabei, and it is the manager's job to make a player better and make sure that he's ready to play in any position. But Celtic fans and people have been saying, look, we still need a left back that's better than Bernabei, that's better than Greg Taylor. Well, every time that a new player comes in, Greg Taylor goes, Hold my pint, son. This is my position. Anyway, I can fully understand the frustration of Celtic fans, says Chris Sutton. He says, I get the issue mainly, but when you're just a manager back in the door, it's really unacceptable that you haven't filled this. Securing Cameron Carter-Vickers on a new deal was great news, said Chris Sutton. He's been the best defender in Scotland for a while. You can't get away from the fact that there are other areas of concern within the team. Everyone thinks that Celtic will roll over Ross County today. I'm going for 4-0. Tell me your predictions in the comment section of this. At this point, Alexander Bernabe, will he get the game or will the young guy get the frame? The frame. See how I've done there? Will he be in the frame for that position? The fact that Rodgers has not brought in someone beggars belief, says the one and only Chris Sutton. Does it beggar belief? We all know the way that Celtic work. And it has changed days from the last 2 seasons. The 2 seasons previous, where the manager that we had in liked to get his business done early, and he went out and secured players that he knew that he could get in early in the window. And walks Rodgers and Peter Lawwell this year, and it's all changed again. Anyway, Rodgers, is it on him or is it Mark Lawwell? Is it on him, Mark Lawwell and his team? Is it the board? For me, it's not on, says Chris Sutton. The market seems to be more complicated for Celtic than it ought to be. Rodgers has spoken out about quality. Remember, Rodgers spoke about quality the month before, since November last year. He spoke about adding quality and not just for the sake of it. He said you want to add the right type of players if they become available. He says that's fine if you're talking about improvement, says Big Sutton. He said himself last week that Celtic had to be mindful of loading the issue with Taylor and support backup. So they know that they've needed a backup player, and it's now that Greg Taylor is out injured. They did try to go for the Liverpool young guy, but as soon as he walked onto the pitch in his Liverpool strip, of course Klopp was going to play him for Liverpool. Liverpool aren't a selling club, and they're not going to sell their younger players to Celtic. Anyway, that's Chris Sutton saying it beggars belief about the recruitment failure. Has it been a failure this window, or is it just a really difficult window? Tell me what you think in the comment section. You've got to remember, it was only 2 weeks ago that Chris Sutton said, I think that Big Cameron Carter-Vickers could be sold this summer. Make your mind up, Chris, because I got completely slated for it also. Anyway, let's move over to the other Chris, the Chris Meltdown Boyd. Chris Meltdown Boyd has been in it again. He's taken umbrance to an article that Neil Lennon wrote in the media. And he says, Chris Boyd aimed a brutal dig at Neil Lennon and his unwavering confidence that Celtic will win the title this year. The former Sevconian Rangers, what Rangers did he play for again? Can't remember, there were that many of them. Anyway, we move on. They said, look, the Celtic bottled 10 in a row. Wait a minute, we won the league once in the last 12 years, cut by Chris Boyd. Get in there. He said that, listen, Clementine, I'm going to call him Clementine because he's a little orange. Anyway, Clementine has already publicly said that Lennon's dismissive attitude towards the squad had spurred them on against Hibs, who are completely crushed. So anyway, Boyd reckons his whole club... Now, this is the key sentence by Boyd. Chris Boyd reckons that his old club have got what it takes to take the champions to the wire. And on that note, they're not going to win the league by taking us to the wire. It means that they'll be there, kicking about in seconds, which is fair enough. It's fine by us. Anyway, it's Ross County today. We are back at the game. There will be a live before, and I won't be getting raced away like I was last weekend. There will be a live before the game today, just before the team comes out, so we can all talk about who's actually on the bench, because I think today is the day that Bredan Rodgers will bring in Rocco Vata and the young boy Kelly. It'll be interesting to see if any of the other young team get on the bench. And Nico Kuhn, will he get a start? Who does he drop from the team to bring in Nico Kuhn? Tell me that in the comments. On that date, have a fantastic day, Celtic fans all around the world, and I shall see you on the next one, just a couple of hours' time.